Okay, welcome back everybody to another edition of Jonathan Sips Tea while offering some information. Today we're going to be talking about screenwriting. Let's go ahead and recap real quickly what we've learned so far in the class. Remember week one we spent a lot of time talking about lingo, language, and shot making in general, and how to kind of start to craft images with directorial intent, emotional intent, and storytelling intent. Then last week we put that into effect in some way and did some practice shooting coverage. And now we will kind of revisit those concepts of storytelling from week one, but with one step backwards. And by that, I mean we're going to put our ideas onto paper and therefore do the initial process to shot making, which is putting the words down and figuring out what we need to shoot via the script. So this is going to be a very quick screenwriting video. What we're going to cover is some software stuff, some formatting stuff, and just some general beginning of writing. I will do a later video that talks about structure for bigger, longer stories. Y'all are just working on 1 to 2 page scripts this week, so while yes, beginning, middle, and end should exist, yes, the conventional narrative beats of a script can exist within a 1 to 2 page script. We will worry about that later once we get into bigger ideas and or just have more time for video, because that tends to be a bit of a longer piece of information. So for starters, let's talk about software. Screenwriting software does exist, and it is important because much like a resume, much like a letter, much like a book report even, screenplays have their own style of formatting, and it's very precise, and it has to be very precise. Screenplays originally back in the day were written on typewriters, and even though we've now moved digitally, it's still a professional courtesy, but unfortunately an expectation that you put your script in typewriter font and use the right margins, the right tabs, et cetera, et cetera. And so what we will do is I will show you how to find free screenwriting software that will format your script for you, and we'll kind of start to explain how that process works. But if you want to study formatting and study what a script should look like, the easiest thing to do is look at professional screenplays, and those are very easy to find. The best place I can think of off the top of my head is a website called nofilmschool.com. And so what I do is we're just going to Google here, and I'll just type in No Film School Oscar screenplays, because every year this website publishes the nominated scripts for the Oscars, which are as good a place as any to start looking at and start reading. There's always a couple of different links, but if we just I'll click on the second one here, they'll have a list of different things, and you'll be able to just pull out scripts. And here we are. Here is a professional script. It's a PDF. We could download it if we wanted to. But let's go ahead and go over the component parts real quick. You do have that handout from week one, part of the syllabus handout. But every script starts either with over black, if it starts with black, or typically, let's see if I can find another one. That one is downloading. The other thing that scripts always start off with, if it doesn't start over black, it starts with the words fade in. Let's see if The Shape of Water started with fade in. So yeah, so there you go. Fade in. And that's always at the beginning of every script, hands down. You need to put it on your script. It's kind of a dumb, silly reason, but the fade in represents that idea that the lights in the theater have gone down and the screen has turned on and the movie has started. So it's kind of an old-fashioned thing, but one that has stuck around, and fade in absolutely needs to be at the top of every script that you write, unless you start over black, like this script that we opened initially. Every time you are moving from one location to another in a script, you start a new scene. That could be from bedroom to hallway. That could be from apartment to street. That could be from, one state to another, etc. It does not matter. Anytime you move locations, you start a new scene and you insert a new slug line. This is called a slug line here. That's the scene header. And it always has 3 parts: interior, int, or exterior, ext, the location where we are in the movie, and the time of day, either day or night. Okay, so if we scrub through this script some more, see if we can find another slug line here. There's another one and another one. We're all in the same place. Let's find one where we're in a different place. Triple. There you go. Interior, Kumail's apartment later. And then interior, his bedroom, his living room. So there, it's very finite. It's very exact where you are, and the separation of scenes. Okay. When you're writing your script, the paragraphs and or lines of action are called body copy. And then you have dialogue separated out in the middle by character. And the software that we're going to take a look at formats all this stuff for you. It's very easy to do. It's just pretty straightforward these days. Back in the day, you had to count out your spaces, count out your tabs. It was a real pain. But now it's very easy, which therefore catch-22 means there is absolutely no excuse for you to not have a properly formatted script. And if you're somebody who wants to send a script to readers or to agencies or wherever, contests, etc., if you don't have your script formatted correctly, they just won't read it, period. So it's very important that you get it right. Okay, so before we get into the specifics of finding the software, the other thing that I want to get into, and this is pretty much as I will say this week about the screenwriting process. Again, there'll be later videos. We can have discussions in class, etc. But the sort of how-to / arguably hardest part of writing a screenplay, in my opinion, is the fact that you have to write literally what happens on screen as we see it. That's the whole point of a screenplay. That's the big difference between a screenplay and a novel. A novel, you can kind of write the character thought about this, or you can just jump into their head. You can just kind of write these sort of mental statements that would not appear visually. But in screenwriting, you are literally writing what happens as it happens and nothing else. So if we look at this line here, Kumail walks into the comedy club as Mary is doing a set on stage. That is literally what he does. He walks into the room, she's on stage. And then Chris intercepts Kumail as he walks backstage. That's it. Then there's dialogue. Okay. Mary walks off stage and sits on the couch next to CJ. That is a direct visual action. That is just exactly what we would see on screen as it happens. And these are always written in present tense because you would experience them as an audience on screen in the present tense. So keep everything in the present tense and write very directly what happens as it happens. You can't make any assumptions in screenplays. You can't write things that are in your head that you think the audience will get. Or like, in a novel you could write, his sister walks in the room. That's a great sentence in a novel. But in a movie, on screen, it's just going to be a girl walks in the room. So if you want a character to be known as somebody's sister, for example, you can't just say their sister walks into the room in the script. You have to say, the girl walks into the room, and then in the dialogue, somebody's like, "Hey, sis," and now we understand that there's a familial relationship. It has to play out as it would on screen in the way that you would get the information. What's very difficult about that is writing direct action as it happens or as it would happen can be kind of boring. It's not easy to make a sentence, Mary walks off stage and sits on the couch next to CJ. Like, that's a really boring sentence, This script, in particular, this movie, this is the big sick if you haven't seen it, is living off of really good dialogue, really good jokes, so they can write really boring lines of body copy all over the place. But oftentimes what you're trying to do is you're trying to find ways to write direct, literal action in very elegant, fancy prose, which can be complicated. Adjectives come into play a lot. What I typically do is I push my high school students, for example, to write things out and then find the common adjectives like bad or big or tall or sad or any of those. And we start to replace them with more visual, more fun words that are, more descriptive. Things like lethargic or exhausted or gigantic or, things of that nature that kind of make it more fun to read, but are still very direct. Like a tall man and a humongous man, you haven't actually changed the way the information is being given to you via the page or on screen, but you have made it more descriptive and more fun to read of sorts. And so that's kind of how that goes. And so as you put together your 1 to 2 page scripts as an exercise, try and find fun, fancy ways to write the visuals. You have to write exactly what happens. The character walks into the room, but maybe the character strolls into the room. Maybe the character skips into the room. Maybe the character walks into the room briskly. Maybe the character walks into the room with tragedy. Find different visual ways to sell us and show us what is happening on screen. All right, so then let's go ahead and do some formatting stuff. So in the professional world, Final Draft is the standard software for screenwriting. It's great, it's convenient, it's easy. I think it even has a link right to the WGA, so you can register your scripts almost through the software itself. But it does cost money. It's not incredibly cheap. And that is obviously a hindrance for some of us who are not yet sure that we want to be screenwriters, or just don't want to have to pay for it if we don't have to, kind of a thing. But looking at this script here, this is the font that is accepted, okay? And when students, especially high school students or anybody really that gives me a script that is put together in a Google Doc or Word, even if the tabbing and the capitalization and all the formatting of there is correct, the typewriter font that you get in something like Word or Google Docs, or etc., is not this same looking typewriter font that is typically looked for in screenplays. And if we pop these open, there may be some variation in the fonts when you get to these scripts, because these have, like here's this cover page. These have all been run through the system of the Oscars and are being redistributed for reading. So the fonts won't always match perfectly here when we look at these, but this is still pretty darn close from one to the other. And then if we pop out, let's do like Get Out. As we open these, we just kind of want to take a look and see, see all these fonts are pretty much identical. That one didn't even work. But we get the point. We can try Logan here and see if that one works. They're all pretty much identical fonts because that is the font that you use to write screenplays. That is the font that Final Draft gives you when you write screenplays, and all of these scripts would have been written with Final Draft, and therefore with the Final Draft given typewriter font. Okay, so we want to stick to that because that is the fastest way somebody knows that you didn't write in Final Draft. And if you didn't write in Final Draft, then he might be a hack, you just know what you're doing, etc. But here's the fix. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into Drive, go to our Google Drives, and within Google Drive, if you come into, once it loads here, if we go in and we're going to make a new thing, we're going to add a screenwriting app to our drive that is pretty useful and the best one that I know of for free. Okay, and it's called UmiScript, and we'll get there in a second. We're just going to go to Connect More Apps. Then when you search for apps, you go to UmiScript. See if it comes up. That did not work, so I'll just type script and scroll down. There it is, UmiScript. I guess it's all one word. And I've already got it, so I can't reinstall it. But if you just hit connect, it will get added to your Google Drive, and then you can use it. And this is the best free solution I have so far found. There are others out there that you can research and use, but this is the best one I've found, which I will explain why. There's another one. One of the first free programs for screenwriting was called Celtex. And that was pretty good, but now when you log on to Celtex, it's all cloud-based, and they only let you write, I think, 2 or 3 scripts before you have to start paying for it, which doesn't work for anyone. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop open Yumi script now that we've connected it to our drive. And we're going to get this intro page. And they give you fade in, they give you a slug line, they give you all these pop-ups that say please pay for it, which you don't have to. And then they give you an example or a start to your body copy, they give you a title page, etc. It's all there. Now, if you're using a web browser, if you're in Chrome, if you're in Safari, I think, if you're in Firefox for sure, any web browser on a laptop or a desktop computer, you should be absolutely fine from this point. I have had some students who have struggled with their content disappearing or struggled opening the Yumi app on iPads because Yumi script does not have a tablet app. It only works through desktop versions of a browser. And so if you're on a tablet and you're in your Google Drive and you're trying to work through the Google Drive app, Yumi script won't work. You have to be in the desktop versions through a web browser for this to work. But once we pop open the script, the first thing we want to do is make sure that we save it. And we're just going to go ahead and save to Google Drive right there via this click over here. We'll give it a title, sample script, and then we'll say save. The reason that you have to do that first is because since this is a separate app from Drive, it won't automatically save like a Google Doc. It doesn't just automatically create it. You have to create it yourself. Now it'll save automatically because we put it in there. We'll get to the exporting bit in a minute. But so on your title page, we'll just type in sample script. Doesn't always have to be in all caps. That's kind of a what you ever want to do type thing. And then as we come down, you've got your fade in right there. You've got your first slug line. We'll just leave it alone. It's dark and stormy. Now, every time I hit return or tab, my script is going to be formatted automatically. So if I hit tab, I'll just, like a dog runs through the forest. Okay, and then in this script, the dog's going to be able to talk. But so all I'm doing is I'm hitting tab to get over, and it'll say, okay, now we're doing a character. It will automatically capitalize your character, and when I hit return again, I'm set up for the formatting of my dialogue, and the dog says, I'm lost. Okay, now if I wanted to do another character, that's what Yumi script has set me up for when I hit return, so I'll just hit return again, and it brings me over to action. If I hit return one more time, it'll automatically go to a slug line, and I can say interior cabin. Right? And there's all of that. We've pretty much formatted the script as we go. There are some other things that you may run into or want to format that you can do. So for instance, if we come back up to the dog and I wanted to add a parenthetical, which is kind of like adding direction on the page of how a line sounds or reads or who it's read to. You don't want to do very many of these, but maybe you want to add in a line here and there. So I just hit I just started typing the parenthetical, and it automatically saw that and formatted it, okay? And there you go. And then I can click back down here and start typing all this stuff. Remember that every time we introduce a character for the first time in the movie, we capitalize their name. So Thomas is sitting by the fire. Now, any other time Thomas ever appears throughout the whole rest of the script, his name will not be in all caps, but that first time, which we should do with the dog up here too, that first time, you need to put it in all caps, and we'll talk about this some more later. But that's essentially it. That's formatting your script. Use Yumi script. It is the correct font. This is the final draft font. And then when you're done, you can come up and you can click on this page icon here, and you can save another copy to your Google Drive. You can print it, but you can also export it. And you can export it as a PDF, which is great. That's how you want to deliver it. The best possible thing that Yumi script gives you, though, is the ability to export it as a final draft file, which is really cool for a free program, because that means that I can write my script on Google Drive wherever I am, even if I don't have Final Draft, and then I can export it as this FDX Final Draft file, and then either, you know, find a friend who has Final Draft, or if I want to get Final Draft later, I can just straight import this into Final Draft, do any of my professional touch-ups that Udemy script cannot offer me. For example, when you're ready to shoot a script, you always go in and you add scene numbers, but Udemy script doesn't give you the option to do scene numbers unless you pay for the app. But so if you just take it and put it in Final Draft, you can do scene numbers there, no problem. You can do the WGA stuff. You can make sure your formatting's all correct up to Final Draft standards. It's really convenient that they give you this Final Draft option. It's a pretty amazing thing. But we're just going to do a PDF. We'll hit OK, and then there it is, sample script that we have written with a title page, and we're off and running. So if you have the time and you're so inclined, go ahead and give writing a 1 to 2 page script a shot. Hopefully using Udemy script. I will call you out if you don't, because I will notice the font, and that is how it would happen in the professional world. But good luck. Email me with any questions, and I will send out probably another screenwriting video in another day or two that goes more in depth in like structure and stuff. But we don't need to be too worried about that yet, because we're only moving into week 3. But have a good weekend, and I'll see y'all next week.